It's a teen talk skating podcast where I embarrass myself. Hello, and welcome to episode number 75 of a Teen Talk Skating podcast. My name is Ango, and I hope you guys are doing very, very well. It is episode number 75, which does really remind me of the 75th Hunger Games. It's the quarter quell, everyone's gonna die, every past victor has to go re-enter the arena. Like, are we gonna die? Is President Snow trying to kill me? Like, I don't really know. But I don't hope that I get killed by President Snow because I kind of want to continue doing this podcast. If you're watching from the Americas, not really the Americas, just the United States of America, the USA. Yeah, I am recording this on the 4th of July, so happy 4th of July to you all. That is also why I'm trying to record this episode a little bit earlier in the day, because at night I know like all the neighbors are gonna do fireworks. And so if it gets dark, oh, that was one right there. If it gets too dark and you guys hear fireworks in the back, it's fireworks. It's not like my house is burning down or anything. Like, I just trust. But yeah, that I hope will not be a huge distractor. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing very well. I've been watching a lot of Wimbledon recently. Like, I'm in my tennis phase now. I'm just bored. I have no skating to watch, guys. I need something to watch. So I've been watching tennis. I don't know what happened to me, but I've been watching tennis of all things, and I hope you guys are maybe watching tennis. Maybe you're not into tennis. I don't know, whatever floats your boat, but I just like, you know what I mean? Like tennis, like this is what we've resorted to. But I actually kind of like it. I hate to admit that, but I like it. Not as much as skating, of course. Skating's always number one in my heart. But yeah, I hope you guys are doing very well. Happy 4th of July to everybody living in the US. And yeah, let's get started with our program of the week, which is not related to the Hunger Games or the 4th of July or Wimbledon. Program of the week. Okay, guys, so this program of the week comes from one of my what if skaters. Does that make sense? Like, what if this skater never got injured? What if she had a great career and everything? Like, she's still competing, which I feel like is great with her. And I love her like so much. If you ask me who one of my favorite Japanese women skaters to watch is, I would tell you that it is Mai Mihara. Because Mai Mihara is my kind of like what if skater, because she's been injured so many times, and every time I'm like, why? Like, why injury, God? You cannot do this to me, because she's one of my favorites, and I hate to not see her in competition. But this is Mai Mihara. It is her short program. Originally, I wanted to do the short program from the 2021 Skate Canada, but then I searched up the video today to watch it again just to review it, and it literally did not show up on YouTube. I think it just got blocked. I couldn't find it on like anywhere at all. If you can find it, go watch that version. But instead, I decided to watch the version from the Ice, which is an ice show in Japan. So Mai Mihara's short program from the 2021 edition Ice production of The Ice, which is the ice show program in Japan. And the music that she's getting to is I Dreamed a Dream from Les Mis. I could not find what artist it was specifically, but it's a version of I Dreamed a Dream by Les Mis. It is not the one from the movie for sure, because I know that one sounds completely different. But yeah, um, this program is just, it's like Mai Mihara, epitome of Mai Mihara. To me, it's the epitome of Mai Mihara. Amazing skating skills. The beginning part of it, ooh, there's this nice sweeping blade edge that she does, movement that she does with her like skate. It's just, I love that kind of thing where she kind of like swirls around with one of her skates and a little like curve thing. It's just, oh, it's just so good. And the beginning of it, she also does some crossover kind of vibe, but then she also does like some cute little slow twizzles that really capture like the emotion of the music. Like, it's just amazing. The double axle, it's so light, it's so airy. The outfit is just so good. And then heading into the other jumps, the triple flip is really airy. The double toe, you know, the triple flip got a little difficult. The double toe, it was a little hard to get off, but it's fine. My Mihara got it. During her first sit spin, the way she goes into it, the way she kicks up into her sit spin is so satisfying. She doesn't take a long time to do it. She kind of just boom, and just kicks up into her sit spin and lands and spin, 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 spin. Beautiful, beautiful. And then she does her triple lats. My favorite choreographing moment of any Miami Horror program is when she lands a solo triple flip or triple lats. I feel like it usually it is, and she puts one hand forward and one hand back. Oh my god, so satisfying. And then later in the program, let me think. In her change combo spin, she goes into a camel spin and then she changes into a sit spin. And in that sit spin position, she puts one hand up and opens it and she clenches it like a fist. You know, like to capture the emotion of the music, like those little nuances really go well with the music. The idea of dreaming a dream, having that dream, closing your hand on it because it's gone now. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's so it. The step sequence is amazing. It's just so good. There's a lot of moments in the step sequence she holds that nice edge flowing back so nicely. There's a moment she does a few twizzles, some very small but very fast twizzles in a row. Very, very excellent. It's just her skiing skills are on point. The music is on point. The interpretation is on point. And to me, like, I don't want to say it, but I feel like I Dreamed a Dream is like the perfect Mai Mihara song to like skate to because like she's like, oh my god, the amount of time she hasn't made the Olympic team, I'm just like, please, this next season, please, Mai Mihara. I know it's not gonna happen, honestly, but in the back of my mind, like I know she's been injured a lot. It's been hard coming back, but like I Dreamed a Dream being like the Mai Mihara like program, just like that's so sad, Mai Mihara. But I want to say that one day she's gonna achieve her dream. It's not gonna be a dream that she dreamed. It's gonna be a dream that she achieved. Okay, and yeah, Mai Mihara is just no, like name a more iconic combo of me and my love for Mai Mihara. You know what I mean? I think Mai Mihara is such a great skater, and I wish that luck went her way, the injuries went her way, but yeah, I just think that she's a fantastic skater that I wish we deserved more of. But anyway, it's been a long I feel like that's the longest program of the week rant I've ever had. But Mai Mihara, her 2021 short program to I Dream a Dream, either at the 2021 Skate Canada or the 2021 The Ice Show production. Now it is time for our main episode. Yikes. That was your program of the week. Okay, guys, just like the program of the week, our main episode has nothing to do about the 75th Hunger Games or the 4th of July or Wimbledon. I don't really know if any of those are really related. Maybe the Hunger Games because it's very death related. But this episode is another episode in this series that I kind of do, I guess. I'm trying to like start up or not trying to start up, but trying to like do more often because these episodes been really spread out. But it's another episode in this series where I kind of analyze the famous war horses in figure skating. If you don't know what a warhorse is basically a piece of music in figure skating that has been used like extensively, like so many times. You're tired of hearing it. You're tired of seeing it. Like when it shows up on the, oh my god, that's another firework thing. Sparklers, sorry. But when that piece of music shows up when the skater is announced and they start like skating, like you see that name of the music, you see this artist, and you're just like, no, 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 we're turning the TV off. I want a bathroom break. I need to get some more popcorn. Like, I cannot hear this music. I don't want to see it. It's like the songs that we kind of get sick of in figure skating, but at the same time, some people really have those like guilty pleasure war horses where they're just like, yeah, that's like my vibe. Like, sorry, I love any program that's that with that war horse. And so, lots of definitely mixed opinions on these war horse types of music where they're used so much. Some people really love them. Like, I love Carmen. Some people hate it. Some people cannot stand. Like, if they see some of these Carmen, they're like, "You're my least favorite skater ever. I'm not watching you, supporting you ever again." But anyway, I've done two of these episodes before, if I remember correctly. I did one about Carmen, I believe, like literally last year, probably around this time last year. I did one about Carmen, late July maybe. And then I also have another one I did in January about Moulin Rouge, which is another war horse. But after that, I don't think I've had any more war horses episodes like this. And so this is a series I'm trying to start up again because I do think it's interesting to like do, but obviously if you guys don't like it, then you guys don't like it, then I won't do more. So I guess it kind of just depends on how well everything goes. But anyway, that's all very arbitrary for this. But this episode we're analyzing a very 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 famous warhorse, and that is Romeo and Juliet, which is very much inspired because last week for my program of the week I did a Romeo and Juliet program, a free dance from Caitlin Hawayek and John-Luc Baker. And I was thinking about it, like Romeo and Juliet is so used in figure skating that like, yeah, I should do one of these kind of episodes about Romeo and Juliet. Yeah, but honestly, I gotta admit that like I'm just trying to get through the summer, and making episodes every week. Obviously, that I really do enjoy making these episodes, but also at the same time, I'm like, oh my god, I need things to watch. Like, I need figure skating season to start. I know it's not gonna be until like September that it really, really, really does start. with all the new competitions and everything that I'm totally gonna like over analyze and obsess over. But right now there's no competitions, and so I'm just trying to get over this summer, okay? But anyway, Romeo and Juliet, like what is it in this episode? What's the story like? What are the famous programs that have been used by it? And I think what keeps drawing skaters back to it is the main point of all these episodes. Why is it a warhorse? Why is it so commonly used? How is it so commonly used? And do I think it's a good warhorse? That's kind of the main point of it too, is like giving my little opinion at the end. Is Romeo and Juliet a good warhorse? Okay. Okay. Anyway, so what is Romeo and Juliet? And if you haven't heard of it, we been living under a rock since the year like 1500 or something. I don't really know when the man was born, but it is a very very famous play by William Shakespeare. Boo! I really don't. I don't. Shakespeare's not my favorite. You probably read it in high school or middle school even or college, or you've probably read it somewhere in then. Um, and it is a very famous play. It is a tragedy. He has a lot of comedies and dramas, but this one is a tragedy drama. And I feel like it is quite possibly the world's most iconic love story. It's made very big impacts on culture in general and like references in culture, in music, in paintings, and architecture. When I was younger, I first learned about the story of Romeo and Juliet through an episode of a kids show called Super Y. Probably no one knows what that is, but that was my back in the day. It was my I'm not old, but that was my thing. That's how I learned about it. It was in a kids show. And obviously because we're discussing it, it has made a huge impact, I think, on the sport of figure skating. And yeah, I think Romeo and Juliet is a very, very significant piece of culture in that way and how it relates to our sport. Is that another firework? Okay. Really, Katy Perry's having a field day, you know what I mean? Anyway, so I want to start by summarizing the plot of said story by Romeo and Juliet, because we might need a review. I really do think this is a good point to review about the whole summary of the plot because it does help us lead into why it's so commonly used. So think about this as like spark notes to pass your English test. A super quick summary of the plot. We are set in Verona, Italy, which coincidentally is one of the locations in which it's a real city in Italy. Verona, Italy. It is one of the places where the Olympics next year are being held. So that's a little coincidency fun fact for you. In Verona, Italy, where we set our play, where we set our scene. I can't remember the exact line from the play, but there are two star-crossed lovers, Romeo, who is a Montague. This is important to know. Romeo is a Montague and Juliet is a Capulet. But the Montagues and the Capulets just hate each other. They like hate each other. They're always fighting. I remember like one of the first scenes in the play is literally them having a street fight, and then someone has to come stop them because they're gonna kill each other. So the Montagues and the Capulets really, really, really hate each other. Is all you gotta know at this point. Now, Romeo ends up sneaking into a Capulet party kind of for a meme. Not really a meme, but he actually falls in love originally with a Capulet girl named Rosalind, I believe. I think that's her name, but she's not really important. Um, I believe she's Juliet's cousin, I believe. Rosalind is Juliet's cousin. Romeo falls in love with Rosalind first, and he knows Rosalind's going to be at the party. So he sneaks into the Capulet party pretending he's supposed to be there, even though he's a Montague, and he would probably get murdered if he was discovered there, right? But at this party, he ends up seeing Juliet, and there's this famous line that says, "Has my heart loved till now, for swear at sight, for I've never seen true beauty till this night." And it's very relevant, and I will explain to you later why that specific line is relevant. But he sees this girl named Juliet, and he just falls in love with her. But of course, he is a Montague, she is a Capulet. They're not supposed to be with each other because their two families are enemies. I'm such a good summarizer. I'm gonna be the best English professor, guys. But anyway, they fall in love in a sense. They've literally known each other for a night, and they fall in love because that's what you do. There is a balcony scene where Romeo ends up sneaking into Juliet's garden, and Juliet like stands at her balcony, and they're like professing their love to one another, and like Romeo wishes that like her head was on his glove or something like that. It's something weird. It's so no, he wishes that she was a glove on his hand. I think it's something like that. It's something weird with a glove. Okay, fireworks. Okay, Katy Perry. Uh, ignore that. But anyway, they're remember their families hate each other, so they're not supposed to be together. They're not supposed to be in love. It's just this wasn't supposed to happen. Now, I will say Juliet at the time is supposed to be married off to some other guy named random guy named Paris. But she doesn't like him. He's not Romeo. He's not a Montague, so her family does like him, but it's an arranged marriage that she doesn't want to be into. But she likes Romeo for real. Like they're really much in true love, I guess. And then eventually they elope and get married in the church in secret the next morning, the morning after that. I really can't remember. But remember, their families hate each other. They cannot they cannot be married. That's not no. You know what I mean? They no. Okay. But anyway, Tybalt is this guy. He's Juliet's cousin, another cousin or a brother. I really can't remember. But he's a Capulet. Yeah, he's a Capulet. Tybalt is related to Juliet, and he's Juliet's cousin. I want to say, or maybe it's a brother. I have no idea. But Tybalt hates Romeo. That's what you gotta know. So Tybalt hates Romeo, and Mercutio is Romeo's one of Romeo's friends or a brother. I can't remember. One of his friends. And Tybalt and Mercutio have a fight over Romeo, basically. Mercutio dies, but then Romeo gets revenge by killing Tybalt. So Romeo just killed Juliet's cousin, basically. Juliet, I don't think she actually really cares about this. I don't know if she actually liked the guy, you know what I mean? She didn't like her own cousin. She was like, okay, well, my husband Romeo killed him, so he must have been right in trying to kill him. But anyway, Romeo gets exiled out of Verona. Like, I'm not even kidding. They're like, no, you did not just kill that man. In the movie version, one of the older movie versions, they literally show the guy just laying on the street dead. It's kind of weird. But Romeo gets exiled out of Verona. He's not allowed to come back at all. He's not supposed to come back. He's supposed to go to some other city. I forgot what the exact name is, and seek refuge there. You know, he's royal. He's nobility, so it's kind of okay for him. But you know, and then they announced that Juliet and the Capulet family, Juliet was gonna get married to that older guy Paris, that she actually doesn't love. And remember, she's already married to Romeo, so she can't really get married to Paris if she's already married to Romeo. And she is kind of in desperation. Like these characters are in desperation. Oh my god, Romeo just got exiled. Juliet is now gonna get married to someone else. Like how like there is no, you know what I mean? There's like cannot be together. They just know. And this is a lot where that kind of star-crossed lovers romance theme really comes in and the desperation shows in skating that I think is this is the point to remember. Like they're for Romeo and Juliet are forever in a state of impossibility. They're not possible. They're not supposed to be possible. And that's kind of the emotion you see in Last Game. But anyway, because they don't know what else to do, Juliet goes to the priest or like some priest guy and he gets a potion. And he says that the potion will put her into sleep that and it will make her look dead. And meanwhile, that guy will send a message to Romeo about the whole situation so Romeo can come save Juliet and stuff, okay? And so Juliet takes the potion and her family walks to her room. She's like, oh my god, Juliet just died. And they hold a funeral for her. But remember, she's not actually dead. She just drank a potion that makes her look dead, that made her heart almost stop, that makes her look really dead. And so the plan is that this friar priest guy is going to send a message to Romeo about this whole situation. Romeo's going to come save Juliet, right? And that's supposed to happen. That there's supposed to be a happy ending, right? There's supposed to be a happy ending, except there is not a happy ending because the friar guy ends up failing to reach Romeo in time because I think the city that Romeo is in it has a quarantine because of the bubonic plague. Yeah, I know it's the Black Death. Yeah. That ends the whole play basically. But basically, Romeo does not hear from this friar guy that Juliet is not actually dead. She's fake dead. So Romeo actually hears from one of his friends that Juliet has died, and he thinks that's real, that Juliet is actually dead. Um, he does not know that Juliet is not actually dead. She just drank potion thing. So Romeo goes back to Verona secretly, even though he's supposed to be exiled, and he goes to the Capulets like funeral crypt, their little mausoleum tomb kind of vibe. Romeo ends up seeing Paris there, the guy that Juliet was supposed to marry. Romeo ends up killing Paris there. And then Romeo has a very, very like emotional monologue with Juliet because he believes that, again, Juliet is actually dead and it's Juliet's actually, oh my god, that was a really loud one. He believes that Juliet again is actually dead. But she's actually not. Like I said, like 10 times already, sorry. And so he drinks poison because he thinks, well, if she's dead, then I might as well die because that is how I am. Like, like I cannot exist without her. Again, another kind of emotion that you need to pick up on oh my god, those are so loud. In terms of figure skating is that again, if she's dead, I want to be dead too because we cannot exist without each other. Now, right when Romeo dies, Juliet wakes up from the death potion that she drank, the near death potion or whatever, and she sees Romeo dead. Like literally she sees Romeo dead and she's like, oh my gosh, what happened? This was not supposed to happen because Juliet knows the whole plan was to make her look dead. Romeo was gonna come save her. When she wakes up, she thinks Romeo's alive, but he's not alive because he just drank poison to kill himself. So Juliet would be alive. Or Juliet would also be dead. So Juliet wakes up and she takes Romeo's knife and she ends up stabbing herself too because, again, if he cannot exist, I cannot exist because we need to exist together. The star-crossed lovers that were very much doomed to fail from the start because of their two families. And the whole irony of the whole entire play, and I think it really was Shakespeare's whole I'm a genius, y'all are stupid moment, is that the Montagues and the Capulets end up making peace after they see what their actions have done. They see that Romeo and Juliet have both died, they were lovers, and their families need to like make peace with each other and make up basically because they cannot afford this to happen again. So it's the death of Romeo and Juliet, the that brings the two enemies together, that brings the two enemies in peace. And it's somewhat ironic because, again, Romeo and Juliet were the lovers in the first place, even though they were supposed to be enemies, and they're actually the cause of the enemies becoming peaceful friends in a sense. And so that was a very quick summary of Romeo and Juliet. There's a whole bunch of subplots I feel like in the whole play that are not really part of the main story, but those are the really important parts. There's a whole subplot of them like these fireworks are actually gonna no, no, we're not doing this. Well, I hope the noise isn't so bad. But anyway, that is kind of main premise of Romeo and Juliet, and I think the important parts you need to know for figure skating. Those fireworks are actually gonna ruin my recording. But it's patriotic, whatever. Okay, so I want to discuss some of the versions of Romeo and Juliet that are used in figure skating because the original play was not a Broadway musical. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm sorry to disappoint you. The original play written by Shakespeare was not some Broadway musical with all the lights and glamour. It didn't have music that went along with it. Skaters are not going to skate to Romeo's monologue about how beautiful Juliet is for 4 minutes long, and so that's not a thing. And so there have been many, 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 and I mean many, many versions of Romeo and Juliet that have been adapted to music or, used by composers to do music or turned into movies that have soundtracks. And so I'm going to discuss a couple of them here. These ones are the one that's most used. I have 6 of them here that are very much the most used version of Romeo and Juliet. There's infinite Romeos and Juliets out there in terms of musical sections. In the year 1880, Tchaikovsky ended up making an overture to Romeo and Juliet. That one is not the most common. One that is pretty common is Sergei Prokofiev in 1935. He has a classical version, a whole classical suite of Romeo and Juliet. And then when we get into the movie era, I do think the most used version is the version from 1968 by Nino Rota. And this has songs like What is a Youth, the love theme from Romeo and Juliet. It's a very, very famous theme in figure skating. What is that? Is that my Duolingo? I think that is. Sorry about my notification. That is a firework though. But anyway, yeah, that's a famous one. The 1996 version by Nellie Cooper, Craig Armstrong, and Maria DeVries. I'm very sorry if I'm saying those names wrong. Is another famous version. That one is the one with Leo DiCaprio, and I don't know. I remember saying that this was the one that they skated to last week, Hawaii and Baker, but that was actually wrong. No, I was wrong. Um, But this is the one that has the very famous song "Loving You," and that includes the line, has my heart loved till now, for swear its sight, for I never see true beauty till this night." That one's the one with the very famous line. I mean, all of them have the line, but this one's the one with the very famous part of that part that Leo DiCaprio said. Anyway, and then in 2013 there was another movie version. That soundtrack is by Abel Korzeniowski. I'm very sorry I'm saying that name wrong. That one is the one that Hawaii and Baker skated to last week that I mentioned. But again, there are many, many infinite ones, and the last one is not actually Romeo and Juliet. But if you ever heard West Side Story, which is a very, again, a relatively common warhorse and figure skating, it is a musical. All those sparklers, oh my gosh! All the West Side Story program that you've seen, because West Side Story is technically a Romeo and Juliet adaptation as well. It's just set in New York City, and it's two gangs instead of two families, I believe. But yeah, West Side Story is actually from Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim. That is also actually a Romeo and Juliet adaptation, kind of, but it's obviously a very different adaptation because it's West Side Story. Are you tired yet of hearing me rant about Romeo and Juliet and all those versions? But anyway, I want to talk about some of the famous programs of Romeo and Juliet and kind of what ties them all together. Like, what is the most common elements in these programs that we're seeing? Why are we seeing them? Why do they exist, etc.? Um, and I try to do one kind of each version. Mixing of these versions are super common. A lot of skiers will skate to the 1968 Romeo and Juliet and the 1996 Romeo and Juliet, maybe a bit of the 2013 Romeo and Juliet and the 1880 Romeo and Juliet, maybe just the 1935 Romeo and Juliet. Maybe they'll do like a 1968 Romeo and Juliet and then mix it with a whole different movie, a whole different opera. No idea, but just know that not every program is just Romeo and Juliet. A lot of singers will mix the different versions to really create all those iconic moments together, those to combine them together, and I do think a lot of them go well together anyway. So I try to find, uh solo versions that only did one thing. So first off, we have Dennis Lasias of Latvia. He skated to the 1935 Prokofiev version of Romeo and Juliet in his free skate from the years 2020 to 2022. This is a very iconic one for me. This is the one Dennis Lasias he won the European Championships bronze medal with back in 2022, and the one he went to the Olympics with. This is the one with a very famous knee slide moment at the very end of the program that I really think choreographically kind of shows a lot of chaos in Romeo and Juliet. I really did like that one. Yuzuru Hanyu skated to the 1968 movie version of Romeo and Juliet in from 2013 to 2014 in his free skate. It was his Olympic free skate as well. That one to me has a lot of desperation in it. It has a lot of like looking up, I feel like, at the sky, if I remember. Kind of that same vibe. And yeah. And funny thing is that Yuzuru Hanyu also did the 1996 version in 2011 and 2012, also as a free skate. So he actually has two different Romeo and Juliet free skates. Fun fact, people, fun fact. Brady Tennell of the USA had the 1996 movie version mixed with a couple other things from 2018 and 2019 in her free skate. And then, like I discussed last week, Kaylin Hawayak and John Luke Baker in 2014 and 2025 did the 2013 movie version for their free dance. And so you can see, yeah, there's a huge, appeal for me into that. Those are the most famous or notable programs I could think of recently wise anyway that have done Romeo and Juliet. There's been so many. There's skaters who have just there's many, many that have missed. You can go on the figure skating Wikia, the shoot, what's it called? Like the fan wiki page, not Wikipedia. There's another fan wiki page, and it shows you a whole list of people who have done all the different versions of Romeo and Juliet, and it was kind of a blast seeing how many people did Romeo and Juliet and sacrificed their lives to this man named William Shakespeare and his stories. But again, what it connects all these programs together for me is the performance. It isn't the technical elements, obviously, it doesn't really connect. But a lot of these skaters, I really do think, do really, really well with the choreographic moments in Romeo and Juliet. I can think there's this like face that they make, I guess, like the desperate face, the the gasp and mouth open kind of vibe that I really do think a lot of skiers kind of incorporate in their Romeo and Juliet program. You know, you have to remember you're telling a story about these two lovers who were destined to be together and also to die together because their families didn't love each other, but they loved each other. They were married, they loved each other. They were young and married and maybe a little stupid, a little youthful. And that is kind of what a lot of skaters really go for choreographically. These are slower versions of music. These are not the super fast music out there. You see a lot of careful, slower steps here, really trying to pushing those edges, pushing that balance to get that is so many fireworks. Putting that balance, putting those edges in to really convey the emotion and feeling of Romeo and Juliet. And so I really do think those are kind of the most common things that we see with Romeo and Juliet and times of programs. It lends itself very well, obviously, with ice dancer pairs, right? You know, singles it works very well, obviously, but this is a story about Romeo and Juliet. Obviously, two people who are pretending to be in love is often a big theme with Romeo and Juliet, and so pairs and ice dance are very much natural, you know, way to go, natural discipline to do Romeo and Juliet. And it really does, I think, provide that very natural background and chemistry between two characters. It's pretending to be in love, it's pretending to be in, you know, so much desperation with one another that you're just so in love with the other person. And I really do think programs like Hawaii and Baker really do capture that feeling of being in love, being so young, but being in love, and very much iconic moments there. So you know, those are kind of the common things I see in programs with Romeo and Juliet is all those feelings of desperation and all those feelings of looking over one another, looking for oneself, and trying to find those edges and those performance skills as well. The facial expressions are so good for Romeo and Juliet type programs. So why do we use Romeo and Juliet? Like, why is it a warhorse in the first place? You might be wondering this because maybe you're wondering this because you're tired of it. You're tired of William Shakespeare getting all his attention because of Romeo and Juliet, and you want to end it. You know what I mean? Like we need to stop. And so, oops, sorry, that's my table. Why do we use Romeo and Juliet, and why is it kind of a very big warhorse? I do think the theme of forbidden love is just that good, right? It's a trope in a sense. It's it's so captivating. It's captivated us for centuries. Like how many stories of forbidden love can you name? Like probably a lot. There's Cinderella out there. There's like, tons of stories about forbidden love. Love that is not supposed to happen. And Romeo and Juliet is really much the story that is the story of forbidden love of all stories of forbidden love. It's just that famous. It's just that good. And so I do think a lot of skaters really want to use Romeo and Juliet because of that very epic, well known story that so many people around the world know. What is that? What are these? Oh my gosh, fireworks. I just heard birds yell. But anyway, I think Romeo and Juliet has a lot of emotions associated with, with youth, with longing, with, desire, with romance and passion as well. And do you think that lends itself again very well to a good performance when skaters are showing sadness and passion and romance? And you can really delve into that complex emotion because you can really play into that character of Romeo and Juliet. Whereas, in other pieces of music that might be a little flatter, might not be as easy to capture a character, that might be a little, mundane, maybe. It's just like not like the emotion for Romeo and Juliet is set up for you, I feel like, and that's what gravitates a lot of skiers towards it because it's this epic story that you can take your own take on, your own interpretation without having to I don't know. I don't really know. Create your own kind of like story going along with it. I think the story's already there. It's a story people know. It's a story people love and respect. And I think a lot of people want to convey that type of emotion with it. And like I said, pairs and ice dance, especially trying to go for I'm Romeo, you're Juliet. Let's carry, Romeo's gonna carry Juliet. Romeo's doing spins with Juliet. Again, really capturing that. Again, I think a really fast spin really captures the feeling of youth. Standing apart captures the passion for longing. Staring each other's eyes really shows like the passion and desire two people have for each other. It's that really Romeo and Juliet vibe that we're really, really, really going for here. I also want to talk about what Romeo and Juliet tells us about figure skating, right? Again, we're talking about figures. Why can I not say the name of my favorite sport? What Romeo and Juliet tells us about figure skating. Like, why are we still listening to this stuff? Why? Why? I want to say that I think Romeo and Juliet as a whole tells us that this is a very theatrical sport. This is a sport, created because it has such an artistic interpretive component to it. And it has a very theatrical meaning to it and a theatrical vibe in the figure skating. The component score is supposed to anyway make up half of your score, and this is a you know there's so many fireworks going on in so many houses. I'm sorry, guys. But, this is a sport that is full of emotion and longing. And it tells us that skating is not just this emotionless sport. It's a sport that, I think seeks to convey so much emotion, like I said, about youth and longing and desire and passion and romance and just bitter impossibility and feeling stuck in life and wanting to grow and wanting to be loved and wanting to love someone else. It shows us that figure skating is not this emotionless sport that exists without feeling at all. Like figure skating embodies emotion on the ice, and I think that's why people are going to Romeo and Juliet. What it shows us about figure skaters and this sport is that we have to show emotion in it. We have to show the theatricalness and longingness in it, and why we want to show it and everything. And so that's what is what we're going for. Anyway, I do think that it kind of shows the fans and maybe the judges and the officials as well, that and the skaters themselves, that we're kind of all deep romantics on the side. We're all hopeless romantics. We all fall for this story about Romeo and Juliet, about two young people who fall in love and are not supposed to be together. It's a story that is so ingrained in culture and society that I do think it's kind of very appealing to people kind of like me, who are very like deep romantics and really like that type of romantic story that is kind of going on. Yeah. Okay. But then I do think kind of otherwise to Romeo and Juliet being like historical figures almost in a way as well. It's an older play. It tells us that, figure skating kind of likes looking at the past. We like using these classical pieces of music. We like going back to these old stories that have been told kind of time and time again, because why tell them in the same way every time when you can tell them in a different way, when you can incorporate different choreography and different steps and different emotion within it. Some Romeo and Juliet programs are, play a lot more with the love and the youth side and the desire side. Some play with more with the star-crossed lover side and the impossibility of being in love and trying to figure it out in the world and things like that. Some programs, go with the anger and more of the youth and kind of the emotion that goes along with that. A good example I feel like recently is from Sophie Jolene von Felton. She's a junior from the US. She had a Romeo and Juliet program that I did enjoy. I think she really went for the youth and kind of anger that went for the program, whereas another program like Yuzuru Hanyu is more maybe going for that grace element and that the sadness that comes at Romeo and Juliet. And so I do think it tells us that figure skating is a space for so much emotional expression, regardless of what said emotion is. It tells us that it is so it's so like clean in that kind of sense that there's no one way to do it. Romeo and Juliet is a warhorse. There's no one way to perform Romeo and Juliet. It's a diverse type of music and a very diverse sport as well. And I think that's what keeps drawing people back to it is that constant ability to look back at it and see the story and want to tell that story over and over and over again. Okay, anyway, I really wanna, like, finally, at towards kind of the end of the program, discuss my own personal opinion about Romeo and Juliet. Let me know what you guys think about Romeo and Juliet. I'm definitely interested to hear. A lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it. I've seen a lot on Reddit, war horses in general, people I love Carmen, people I hate Carmen so much. Romeo and Juliet is definitely another thing of that. There's many, many versions of Romeo and Juliet, and so I think you know, just Romeo and Juliet in general. Like, what do people think about it? What I think about it personally, what I think about Romeo and Juliet, I do like the story. Like I read it in high school and I really do like it. I have to say. Shakespeare is like not my favorite, but I gotta say that Romeo and Juliet was kind of good. Like I gotta admit that like I actually understood that these fireworks are so crazy. Like I've never heard them louder this year, man. Crazy. I've never heard them louder. But anyway, Romeo and Juliet, I do think it is a good story overall. It has a good vibe to it. I really do think, figure skating should continue to use it. It's not a bad war horse. It's not. I really do like it. And in fact, if I was a skater, I would honestly love to skate to Romeo and Juliet. I always thought that if, because I always do this, I always thought if I had a shirt program, I would always skate to the 1968 version of Romeo and Juliet because I think I would do it, and I kind of want to do one of those like fake deaths at the end. I want to be like Romeo, and you know what I mean, like act like Romeo and everything. I always thought that that would be my ideal program, if that makes sense. Like my short program or maybe an exhibition. I don't know. I really do like Romeo and Juliet. I think it shows like, kind of the intensity of emotion so much. It's a play where emotion is constantly on tension. There's no part of the play that's like calm. You're constantly in tension, and therefore I do think a lot of music in it is constantly in tension. Like I said, because I would skate to the 1968 version of Romeo and Juliet, that is my favorite Romeo and Juliet version. I do think the love theme from Romeo and Juliet is very, very beautiful, and all the songs, all the versions that go with it. There's "What Is a Youth" and "A Time for Us" as well. That is very famous, very widely used, and really gets you into that feeling of skating. I feel like. And then also "Loving You" from the 1996 version, and then a lot of the more contemporary sounding soundtrack from the 2013 version. The old like classical version that like skaters like Denzel Seals did, the 1935 version is a really good Romeo and Juliet. The theme Dance of the Nights is very much again high tension, high emotion, very much on that topic as well. I really do enjoy that version of Romeo and Juliet as well. What is going on outside? Are they playing music now? Gosh. They are playing music. That's crazy. But anyway, I really do enjoy that aspect of Romeo and Juliet and being able to tell that side of the story as well. And so yeah, I really do think Romeo and Juliet, it really does capture figure skating as a whole. It's an iconic piece or iconic theme or characters to work with. It's an iconic story to work with. It's just as iconic as Carmen and Bolero and Rainier Black Eyes to work with because Romeo and Juliet is has made it so much. It's penetrated itself into the cultural body, the cultural corpus, if you will. And I think it has made a lasting impact on society, and therefore it's made that lasting impact on figure skating. And so we do see this general trend, I think, in figure skating that figure skating is obsessed with telling stories of the past, using music from the past, going back to another time period, telling a story from another time period, reminding us of what it's like to be in that time period, reminding us of stories that we've heard, reminding us of stories and emotion that we've heard and we've loved. And it's the music that brings us back. It's the music that brings back memories of either watching a play live or reading it in high school that really makes Romeo and Juliet and a lot of other pieces of music like it special as they are antique and they're a little old and the story's a little different. It's different from what we have. It's different from our current reality. And I do think figure skating for a lot of people like myself is kind of escapism from reality. For a minute, for 4 minutes, you get to sit back and watch people perform to another story and tell you another story. And I do think Romeo and Juliet also is kind of one of those pieces that kind of make or break a skater, like to show us like how good they are at artistry and everything. And I don't know what else I can say and rant about Romeo and Juliet, honestly. But I think Romeo and Juliet is quite possibly one of the most iconic pieces of figure skating music of all time, alongside obviously one of the most iconic stories of all time in all of world literature and all of world culture. You know, I do think it's here to stay. I'm not mad at that at all, but definitely let me know what you guys think about it staying. If you're mad at it staying and everything, let me know what you think for sure. But yeah, that's kind of it for this week's episode. I know it's a little bit shorter. I never make an episode this short, but honestly, I don't know what else I could say about Romeo and Juliet. I apologize if this episode was a little bit on the boring side. I totally get it. Not my best episode, I would say. I'm sorry about that. But if you were interested in Romeo and Juliet, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed hearing about it. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of a Teen Talk Game podcast. Next week's episode will definitely be another video essay or a skater analysis or something different aside from this music analysis thing. I don't know if it's really the best format to work with, but anyway, I hope you guys will all have a very great week. Happy July 4th to everyone who does celebrate. The fireworks during this episode recording were crazy. I thought they would not show up until like later, but I guess they are starting now, and that's what I have to deal with. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening this week's episode of a Teen Plus Game podcast. My name is Go. I hope you enjoyed it so much. And catch you next week for another hopefully very good episode that I come up with. And bye bye.